So now our VPE of Showtime Toastmasters is Connie Weiss, and Connie will introduce our presenter tonight.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. And we've got a great presenter, our very own president of Showtime, Kathy Smith. And she will be speaking on how to select a topic. We've all been there, right? Wondering what we're going to talk about for our next speech. It's my pleasure to welcome Kathy.
Thank you very much, Connie. All right, fellow Toastmasters, welcome, welcome. I want to give you a little bit of heads up. This session might be a little bit different than most Power Hour sessions. This is going to be very much of an interactive session. If you have a comment or a question, please just raise your hand or hit the chat button. Bobby is following up on chat with me or for me, so she'll let me know if there's a question. Everyone, if you have a comment or something that you want to interject, please do so, because like I say, I perceive this more as a, hey, we're getting all together and having a chat. Unfortunately, we don't have any glasses of wine, but we're having a chat and talking about picking a topic for Toastmasters presentations. Now, there are several things you need to keep in consideration when you're choosing a topic for your presentation. There are 3 to 4 things that go on that you don't have any control of as a speaker. You don't have any control of this, but you do have to keep this in mind as you're preparing your topic and preparing for your speech. Now, one of those things is your audience. You have to look at your audience and think, is this speech appropriate? Is it something that my audience would not necessarily have to buy into, but be interested in and listening to? For example, many years ago, I had to give a speech on, one of the topics is choosing something you don't know anything about, doing some research and presenting it to the club. And so this is not anything in any club I'm in right now, so rest assured that's nothing to do with anyone right here. But I chose the most outlandish thing I could think of, which was Wicca, which is those people who study Wicca or witchcraft. And so I got my books and I got my articles off the internet. I did a lot of research. And about 2 weeks or so before I was to give my speech, I was sitting in the club meeting and I was looking around at my fellow club members. And I was thinking to myself, you know, that might not go over real well. Even though we all should have an open mind, you don't want to make your audience feel uncomfortable in any way. So I decided not to do that. And I've never done it. And someday I'll get up the courage. I was a relatively new Toastmaster at the time, so I was kind of wimpy. So I'll get up the courage someday to give that speech. Showtime might be in for a treat pretty soon, but I'll give that speech someday about Wicca and we'll find out where it goes from there. So that's the first thing. You got to look at your audience and decide whether or not your speech is appropriate for that audience. You have to remember, most speeches that we give are 5 to 7 minutes. So you have to structure your speech that it fits into that 5 to 7 minutes. There are some clubs that will give you a little bit of extra leeway. I'm in a club that if the speaker, they allow a minute at the end to wrap it up, which is quite generous. There are some clubs that 7 minutes and you're done. So you need to make sure that you keep focus on the length of time you have to give your speech. There are a few speeches that are longer than that. There are some clubs also that are a little bit more lenient with the time. If you tell them, well, you know, I'm going to need 8 to 9 minutes, they might give that to you. But written on the program is 5 to 7 minutes. So think along those lines. And a relatively new thing that's happened in the last year, of course, your venue has always been important. When we used to meet face-to-face, now this club hasn't done it in several years, but those clubs that meet face-to-face, you have to make sure your venue, especially if you want to do a PowerPoint presentation or show slides or something that you want to use towards your speech, that you have the facilities to do that. I have seen a few people come in to give their speech and they realize, oh, well, I don't have a power cord long enough, and there's not this, and there's not that, and there's all kinds of different things that might happen. So you need to know what type of venue setup you have, especially now, because now we have different types of clubs. Showtime, for example, is an all online club. Everything we do is on that little computer screen. My home club, Voice of Many, is primarily a face-to-face club. We have some hybrid, but most of, I would say 98% of our people meet face-to-face, but we do know there's that online option if we have to. And there's a lot of hybrid clubs. You have to remember that if you're going to give a presentation where, for example, maybe you'll share your screen, well, what about those members who are meeting face-to-face? You need to be able to make sure that they're included in that group, and you have to figure out logistically how that will happen. That's going to take some planning. That's going to take some talk or discussion, maybe with your techie person in the club or your sergeant at arms, whoever is in charge of those type of things. So those are three primary items or things. I hate the word things, but things when you take into consideration when giving a speech or when preparing for a topic to give a brief presentation. Now, that's basic. So those things, no matter how you go along, you're moving along, getting your speech ready, and you have to keep those in mind. Now, there are three basic types of presentations. There's your informational. Basically, you're looking at data, numbers, dates, specific information, very, very data oriented. Then you have your inspirational. That's where you're giving a speech and you want to elicit a great call to action to your membership to do something, to try and achieve something. I gave a speech, another example, a couple of weeks ago about my dislike of the word can't. That word to me is very debilitating to the person who uses it a lot. And so I was giving my speech, and at the very end of the speech, my call to action was for my club members to take one day out of their week and not use the word can't. Expand it to maybe 2 days, maybe a week. And if they can get through a week not using that word, they'll find themselves in a more positive frame of mind and achieving more. That was my belief. I have not been back to the club since then. That was only, well, it was a week and a half ago, and I haven't been back to the club. We'll see what happens on Thursday when I go back and see how they did. So a call to action, you almost want to have an evangelical zeal to your presentation. You don't want to give it blah. You want to have lots of movement, lots of vocal variety. So you want to know if that's the type of thing that you can do. Some people don't want to do that. Some people are too hesitant to do that. So just think about if that's something you can do. And then we've had our informational, we've had our inspirational, and then what I call everything else is just for entertainment. Just give a speech to enjoy yourself, to have your members enjoy themselves. I think most speeches are just information, just giving an entertaining speech. Now, all of these types of speeches are very interchangeable. If you've ever seen any of the world champion Toastmasters, world champion speakers, most of them are giving a very inspirational speech. but they have humor in that speech. They have entertainment in that speech. They have some information in that speech. They have gotten to the point of where they can combine all of these factors into one fantastic speech. And if you ever want to feel like you're not doing so great, listen to one of those speeches, because these people are the cream of the cream. So these people are fantastic. And I've had the opportunity to meet one of them in person a couple of years ago and sit in on some of their speeches, and they're fantastic. They talk great zeal, great inspiration to all of us. So those are basically what you need to look for, and your 3 different types of speeches. Now, let's think about other things. For your informational speech, like I said, it's basically data. You want to get data across. You can get an informational speech, say on global warming trends, or the growth in Phoenix in the last 100 years. It's something with data, numbers. You want to make sure your numbers are hopefully correct. Cite your sources when you're doing a data type of speech, an informational speech, because that is something that you should do anyways, but you need to do. So informational speech might take a little work. It's going to take a little time to get all that data together and present it, but they're quite interesting. Like I said, the inspirational speech, you got to hit it with zeal. You got to really sell yourself and sell what you want those people to do or to accomplish. You're up there like, I'm probably dating myself now, Billy Graham, and you're selling your product. So that's your inspiration. And then the rest, then your entertainment. This is where I think primarily your humorous speeches come into play. Your speeches about my summer vacation, your speeches about sports, anything that you have that interests you, books, sports, travel, anything like that. Those are very much entertainment speeches. They can be informational if you want to give a little data on, say, for sports figures, a certain person's, I've gone not too much on sports, batting average, or the best baseball pitcher ever, that type of thing, and why they are considered the best baseball pitcher ever. So you go into those type of things, and you're kind of giving a entertainment speech, but you're putting some information in with it. And another thing you need to keep in mind is you need to make sure that it's something, A, that you're interested in for yourself, and B, that how much time do you want to devote to research? Entertainment speeches don't really take too much research. A lot of people can give an entertaining speech right off the top of their head. And their informational speeches will take a little bit more time. The inspirational speeches a little bit more time. Probably most of the time in inspirational is the practice. You really have to sell that speech. So those are some basics about speaking. Now, as for sources, that's limitless. You can get information about anything, anywhere. Hit the internet. There are so many interesting topics. Just hit. That's kind of what I did. I put speech topics, how to select a topic for a speech. And there was page after page after page of information on how to select a topic, topics to select. So there's a lot of information out there. A favorite hobby you might have. I know a gentleman in my Toastmasters club who is very much into genealogy. And he gave a fantastic speech a few weeks ago about a genealogy search that he did. And it was just like, by the time he got to the end of it, everybody said, that is a movie, that is a book, because how things do a great speech about that. One person gave a speech on, they're much more active than I. They hiked, I think it's called the Pacific Range or Pacific Rim, I'm not sure, but they hiked, and I think it took them several months to do that. And they talked about that and what they had to do to prepare, what their days, it was a combination of your informational and your entertaining. It was really quite interesting. I don't think it got a lot of motivational type of go out there and walk the Pacific Rim. I don't remember anybody signing up at the end of that speech, but it was quite a fun speech. It was really a great speech. And one other thing I want to caution you about. When you find a topic that you're comfortable with, by no means, no, don't stop it. Keep on going on your topic. But vary your speech topics from time to time. The reason I say this, we have a couple of people I know in Toastmasters. Again, not in this club, just okay, guys, it's not you. But there are a couple Toastmasters I know who give the same type of speech every time. So their turn to give a speech. And you know what it's going to be like. So probably at least 2/3 of the group of this audience have tuned out already because they know what that person's going to talk about. It's the same type of speech that they heard the last time and the time before that and the time before that. And this person sounds like he's had a very interesting life. And there's a lot of things out there I'm sure that he could talk about, but he talks about the same thing all the time. So that is like, when it's his turn, you know what he's going to talk about. So just sit there and you look at him, but you're not absorbing what he's saying, which is a shame. But unfortunately, he's got to shake it up. And I've actually I evaluated one of his speeches once, and I said, you know, you did a great job. You can tell how much this topic is important to you. But you need to try and stretch yourself. Try a different topic, a different goal. Try something you've never done before and see how that works out. Because I think he's missing a lot of his potential. He's quite the storyteller. And I think he could give some really great stories if he would just stretch it out a little bit. Another person I know, been in the club a few years, and all of their speeches are about their job and what they do. That's every single speech is different aspects of their job. Okay, well, that's nice, but what else do you do? What do you do for sports? What do you do for, have you ever traveled anywhere? What books do you like to read? There's all kinds of things out there that you can glam onto and give a speech about. And another thing that happens with these people who hit on one topic is information overload. That person who I said gives a speech about work all the time. They gave a speech one time. It was a 7-minute, I think it was a 7-minute speech. Seemed like it was longer, but it was a 7-minute speech. And they went on and on and on, getting all this information, all these numbers, all these facts, all these things that happened. And at the end of your speech, and at the end of the speech, I'm sorry, my first thought was, thank God I didn't say it out loud, but my first thought was, what did you say? It was just so much information. They had to cut it down. To them, it was second nature. To everybody else, I'm hoping I'm not the only one who was lost in the forest, because I was really lost. Excuse me. So those are some ideas to get your speech going along. Now, my Toastmasters, most of my fellow Toastmasters are here. A lot of other people are here. I'm sure other people have some really great ideas in there for themselves. So I'm going to ask, anybody else have some great ideas for topics? And excuse me, I'm going to start choking. So go ahead and just put your hand up and ask away.
Kathy, you made me laugh when you said stretch yourself and think of the audience. And I was thinking of a speech I gave to my Epicurean club. And I thought it was very interesting. And I thought other people, being foodies, would think it was very interesting. It was on edible insects. And most of the world, seeing their reactions, most of the world's diet consists of eating insects. And I gave
Uh-huh.
examples, and I have somebody here, Cynthia, that was there at the meeting, and it was probably probably the whole club's least favorite speech of all time. So I really support when you say it's okay to stretch yourself, but definitely think of your audience and make sure it's a match.
It's too bad you didn't have to have little chocolate candies at the end to share with everybody.
Well, I had gummies, and yeah, it wasn't a good experience. The members weren't as open to the topic as I was.
But you did it. You did it. And who knows, maybe you have a devotee out there who eats chocolate bugs now. Who knows? I don't. Ugh. Okay.
I see Marilyn's,
Anybody else have something that they want to share?
Marilyn's hand is up.
Okay, Marilyn.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when I first became a Toastmaster, and this is a year or two ago. One of the biggest challenges I had was deciding what to speak on, because it is initially challenging. So what I decided I was going to do was I started making notes of things in the news, in the headlines. And if I didn't like the actual topic, I would find something about that topic. So that probably kept me going for my first year as a way to find something to speak about, because I was obviously already interested in it. And then I didn't have to strain my brain so much.
Right. I think when you're first starting out, it's good to have a fallback, something that you're comfortable talking about. But as you go along, you need to stretch yourself out, because you might get kind of bored giving the same type of speech all the time. You want to experience something new. And the most forgiving, most supportive group of people that you can stretch yourself with is a group of Toastmasters, because they've all been there. We've all been there. We've all had the, oh my God, what did I do that speech for? And we've all had, oh, I did pretty darn good. But we've all been there. So don't be afraid to stretch yourself a little bit once in a while. Anybody else? Yes, Bobby.
So you just reminded me of the second speech I ever gave in Toastmasters, and this was many years ago. It was all about NAFTA. And that was a big mistake to do that speech, because it wasn't a topic I was, familiar with. I did my research and everything, but I would have been better off had I selected a topic that I knew about already, especially as a brand new Toastmaster, because now that I'm, more seasoned, as they say, I wouldn't be afraid to do some research and then do a presentation. But early on, I wish I had stuck to more topics that I was comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know the first thing I gave speeches on, excuse me, was travel, because I was fortunate enough when I was younger, I traveled a lot. I was the youngest child. And so by the time my parents they traveled a lot with all the kids. We traveled a lot, mostly by car, because back in those days, that was the most economical way to travel. And as I was growing up, a lot of these were camping experiences. And if there was ever a family who should never have a camping experience, it's my family, because we got ourselves into so many situations that when I was giving some of those speeches, you could look at people saying, oh, she's making this up. No, I could not have made it up. So yeah, mine was vacation. We took mostly driving, mostly camping. And they got me through my first hurdle. This was back in the days, those of us who've been around for a while, this is back in the days of our little booklets that we had to go, our little manuals. And that got me through most of my first manual got me through communication is things about my travels that I've had. Let's see, anybody else have anything they want to share? Come on, we won't be embarrassed by anything that you've had. Okay, Cynthia, what you got?
Well, I found sometimes I've had too much material and it was best to break it up into like a series. And so that way it wasn't overwhelming, but it was just enough information to get their thoughts going, give them a call to action, then bring them into the next series that says, how were your results? If any of you remember what these were, here were the tips, let's continue on. But it also works to the advantage of practicing for a larger, bigger speech. But I definitely have found that that works best as well when you map it out, when you have way too much material and you're so passionate and you're excited about wanting to deliver it, but you need to make sure that it meets the objectives of the project.
Right, that's a good point, and that's actually it's a good tool to use for when you're giving your speech. Leave a little cliffhanger at the end, and so they're like, "What happened? You know, what's reading a novel, getting to the end? What you gotta wait for the next book to come out." All right. How about a couple of our people who haven't said anything yet? How about some of our newbies? I think Tracy, you said that you are new to Toastmasters. Are you having any special issues getting speech material that maybe the group can help you with?
I really don't know. I've been struggling on even doing my icebreaker speech. There's so much going on in my head. I'm like, I just can't decide. I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't even know where to begin.
You've given your icebreaker, right?
No, I've not given my icebreaker yet.
You haven't. Well, okay, example for icebreakers. People do it in different ways. Mine was really boring. Mine was, I was born in Michigan. My family moved to Arizona this year. Lived in Scottsdale all my life. Been at my job since this year. Been in Toastmasters for a week or a half or whatever it was. So mine was like really boring. And then I was sitting in a club meeting one time, a new person came up and she was giving her icebreaker. And she was talking about how she likes to work at her church. And in the middle of her icebreaker, she goes into a gospel song. And I was sitting there with my mouth, you know, it was just amazing. So I think with the icebreaker, you're free to do whatever you'd like. I would just, you know, take it easy. It's 4 to 5 minutes, 4 to 6 minutes. You can use notes on an icebreaker speech. That's fine. It's expected because it's your first time up there. I would just say, find something you're interested in. Maybe you want to talk about, I don't know if you have any pets. You want to talk about your dog. You want to talk about your kids if you have kids. Maybe a recent move that you may have had or a trip you took. Just enjoy it. Just get up there in front of people and just tell them about something that you've done recently or your family history. Just get there and talk. That's all you need to do. Don't be afraid. Everyone's there to support you. And we've all done icebreakers. Some of us have done a lot of icebreaker speeches. Excuse me. When I talk a lot, I start coughing. Great for me to lead a group discussion. But a lot of us have done a lot of icebreakers. I'm at the point that I'm trying to find something new after 7 years, something new to do about my icebreakers, because I've got to get a new path going and I'm going to have to do a new icebreaker. So I know what you mean, Tracy. It's hard to just jump in, hard to do it. It was hard for me to do my first one. I was not really a public speaker when I started this. So, you know, I had to really force myself. And I think I saw Bobby with your hand up.
Actually, go ahead and call on Lori. She had her hand up as well.
Okay, Lori, I'm sorry. I can't see the hands. So I got my glasses on. Okay, Lori, what you got?
Well, you were already unmuted. You could have gone, but I was just going to add, I know when I first prepared for my icebreaker, and I tell this to others all the time, that I love to watch other people. So I go and watch YouTube videos, and I find a lot of inspiration from what they say, I'm like, oh, wow, I could talk about that. Or, you know what I mean? I just watch a lot of different videos on YouTube, and I think that they just give you a lot of ideas. That's all I was
They
going to
do.
add on that.
You're exactly right. I watch YouTube. I've gotten stuck on that. I do BookTube, which is people who are into books. And I found a new channel the other night on a gentleman who does history, American history research. Amazing channel. And he does this for free. And it's fantastic channel. And that's great topic right there. I like YouTube.
Well, I mean,
What do
I
you do?
literally
Watch. Yeah.
I literally search though for icebreaker speeches, you know what I mean? And then, so
Uh-huh.
not even just random things, which is great too. You're
Right.
right. Absolutely. You can get, there's so many videos out there. You can spend an entire day lost in various video lands. But I think that I would actually search specifically icebreakers, and people are then talking about themselves for the most part. And it gives me things, I'm like, because sometimes I can't think of, I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm not interesting. I don't know what to say about myself. You know, I haven't done anything. But then you hear other people talk and you're like, oh, I've done something similar to that. And you hadn't even
Yeah.
thought about it. So that's why I guess I tend to resort to that a lot, and not just icebreaker speeches, but any of the speeches out there. I just look at other people's speeches specifically and look at their ideas. I copy
Yeah,
them. No,
that's
I don't copy them, but I make them my own,
Oh,
of course.
you get ideas. Ideas are free. No, that's exactly right. I've seen several different, I watched some of the world champion speakers on YouTube. And that's where I look at them. I
Absolutely.
think someday,
Mhm.
if I ever grow up, I'll never make it that far, because I find last year I took a year off of area of division work to do a speech contest. It was fine, it was okay, but I found I like being an area director. I like the mentoring part of the program. That's more me. So I don't think I'll ever be a world champion speaker, but more power to them. Okay, let's see. Ibrahima, how are you doing tonight? And why don't you tell us about your first icebreaker?
Thank you. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. I'm enjoying this platform and everybody's sharing. My first icebreaker actually went very well. Typically, I don't keep it complicated. I thought it's 4 to 6 minutes. It goes fast. What I have to do is to just say 2 or 3 things about me, and that's easy. So I thought I'll introduce myself to the club. That's typically easy. It's a minute and a half. And then two or three things to do. So very quickly, I just mentioned how I ended up in America, and 2 or 3 things I like. So I know people tend to get confused and keep it very complicated. I really think icebreaker, but is very receptive, if you want to make mistakes, if you want to get a free pass, the one. Don't keep it complicated. Just say your name, maybe 2 things about your family. And then whether, the last time you've been to a car dealership, if you're frustrated, talk about that. Or say the sunset yesterday, or your last trip to the beach, or that bad burrito you ate last week. I'm telling you, just keep it simple. Just pick something, either you like or dislike. It goes fast. And that there is a comfort to this. You're not doing research on a philosopher, you're not talking about going to the moon. That usually gets a little bit technical. And now with you being new at Toastmasters and being nervous, then that could be a disaster. I just talk about something you like, something that you would talk to your family, your friends, maybe a teacher you like in elementary school, a teacher who really just inspired you, somebody who really didn't like you one day. I don't know, whatever it is, pick 1 or 2 things, talk about them quick, and I think you'll be fine. That's my approach. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. It does go fast. It goes very fast. You get up there and you say a couple things. Now this and you'll see the red thing. I'm done. It goes fast. So then you'll not be a newbie anymore. You'll be a.
Yeah.
So Kathy,
Okay. Anyone else have? Yes, Bobby.
So
Yes.
my first icebreaker was just like yours. I was born, blah, 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 blah. But then over the years, I got more and more creative. And I think my two favorite icebreakers that I did myself, one was I picked 3 words that started with the same letter to describe myself. And then I just talked about why I chose those words. But my all-time favorite icebreaker I ever did was the one where I talked about the different cars that I had in my life and why each car was appropriate at that time. And I really loved that speech.
Well, it's wonderful. I've had a couple of cars. Yeah, okay. That's wonderful. That's some great ideas here. Let's see, did I see a hand up? Nope, okay. Anyone else have any thoughts? Ah, yes, Trish.
Okay, so my first icebreaker, for those of you who know me, know that I'm addicted to Star Trek. So for my very first icebreaker, I wore my Star Trek communicator badge pin. I did a speech about my similarities with Lieutenant Commander Data. And it was around tomato, tomato, potato, potato, you know, maybe I'm just an android with a heart. And that was my, and then I beamed myself out of the room.
I wish I saw that. That's
my first icebreaker. I had so much fun with that speech because it was a topic that I absolutely am passionate about. It was a character in the series that I could absolutely relate to. And it was a fun way to introduce that aspect of me because I know I'm weird. And so that just breaks the ice. Everybody knows I come from another planet.
I've known you for a
Wonderful.
bazillion years
That's
and I
great.
didn't know you love Star Trek. I'd love to
What?
see that.
Where have you been?
I don't know. You're keeping something from me. Maybe
don't
it's
know.
time to get that out of the
Something there,
closet.
too.
The next
Oh.
path.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give it the replay.
Okay, then I'm going to have to do the Klingon speech. Kapla! It's a good day to die.
I love it. I love it. So as you can tell, Tracy, we've all been there. We've all done it different ways. Just have fun. That's the most important thing of all of this, all this information that you're getting, all of these different things is just enjoy it. Just have fun. Go at your own pace. Just don't get uptight about it because that's not what Toastmasters is about. Toastmasters is about improving yourself, getting out there and maybe challenging yourself, but go at your pace. Don't let anyone else tell you have to do it now. I had a Toastmaster like that who was very, do it now. And it drove me nuts. It really drove me nuts. I came close. This was about 2 years into the program. I came close to quitting because I have that at work. I don't need that when I'm trying to do something. There are different ways we're doing it. That wasn't the most productive way, but I'm still here. Okay. All right. Okay, Warren, we're going to pick on you. What is the best speech or the most embarrassing speech you've ever done?
Oh. Well, it's not so much it was an embarrassing speech. I would say it was one of my main learning experiences. It was in my home club, and I believe I was getting comfortable with visual aids or something along that line. And I had a PowerPoint and I had a laptop, and there was a cable in the room so I could put the image up on the screen. However, the cable was only so long, and I did not have a remote presenter, AKA a clicker. So to advance the frame each time, I had to go over to the laptop and hit enter so that I could bring up the next frame. And it was, and as I said, it was when it was my first CC manual when I was going through. So the first time I did that project. And I was a little bit embarrassed. And of course, since I had to walk back and forth, I went over time. And afterwards, one of our most senior people was out, I was outside the room kind of moaning about this. And she goes, well, that's why we meet in here. That's why we do this. It's not to be perfect, it's to learn. And so this is what you learned today. So there was a very key lesson that I got from that particular speech. And subsequently, I brought the speech back in, tightened up in a lot of ways, but I also had better equipment in that case, presented it well within time, and I actually believe I gave a much more interesting speech to the club when I did it the second time.
I gotta say, I applaud those of you who do speeches with PowerPoint and the like. I have not adapted that to my speech menu, my speech thing. And I do have to do that. I have to come out of the 19th century or 20th century and get into the 21st and bring myself up to date, because there are a lot of uses for it, a lot of good uses for it. I need to teach myself how to do that. Marilyn, you look like you need to add some thought to it. What do you think? What was your best or most embarrassing speech? Or maybe they were both. Maybe it was both.
You act like there's only one embarrassing speech. We don't have time for me to list them all, Kathy. That's the hope. But that's the whole point of belonging to a Toastmasters club. You embarrass yourself in front of a small group of supposed friends, you know, and then you can move forward. Sometimes the toughest thing that you can do is decide what to talk about, you know, and especially if you're trying to do a hip pocket speech, which is that last minute, somebody needs to fill in for somebody that didn't show up, and you just kind of wing it. Those are usually the worst ones, because you haven't thought about what you're going to talk about. And unless you've got one that you've actually given more than once and it really is in your hip pocket, then you're just wildly winging it. So I would actually say, especially for people who are struggling to pick topics for their speeches, you know, don't forget that rehearsal time, that preparation time that we are all so diligent about at the very beginning when we start Toastmasters. And as we stay with Toastmasters, we tend to get sloppier and sloppier and sloppier about doing. That's what's critical, you know. So pick your topic, mull it over. If in 2 days it stinks, get rid of it, you know, pick a new one. There's no time limit. Don't kill yourself with it. That would be the best advice I could give to anybody who's new. Pick it, work it, you know, think it over, make sure it's something you want to talk about, and then go from there.
Yeah. Just jump in and do it. I know what you mean about pocket speeches, though. I've done a couple of those where I think I have it, you know, all together. And okay, well, you know, I always sound better when I rehearse at home or in my head, and then I go to give the speech and I, you know, get nice applause and wonderful compliments and nice feedback and evaluations. And I think to myself, it wasn't as good as I could have done, but I did it, and I will continue to do it, and I'll do it in a different fashion the next time, maybe. But that's where you continue to learn. You know, I'm sure we all are our own self-critic, where we're more critical about ourselves than we are about anything else. And we're more forgiving of others and critical of ourselves, but that's how we learn. We just keep on going. Like I say, almost 5 years ago, I almost quit. And I'm so glad I didn't, because this has been the most enjoyable, most informative, and most treasured learning experience I have had in my life, because I've learned a lot about myself and about what I can do. I don't want to use that other can't word, what I can do, what I need to maybe improve on. But it's just enjoy the ride. That's my tagline for every speech, every evaluation, every whatever. I try to say, enjoy the journey, because it is an enjoyable journey if you let it be. Excuse me. Let's see, who have we picked on yet? Let's see, I picked on him. Gosh, we picked on everybody. Lori, we picked on Lori. Tracy.
My
we
good
picked on-
friend Julie.
All right, Julie. Hey, I got Julie and I got Robin. I don't think we've picked on either of them. Julie, you can go first.
Okay, my worst speech.
Or your best.
Well, I'll go with my worst since it was the last one I gave. it was 2 weeks ago for a club that I am coaching, and I was going to do an icebreaker so everyone would get to know me. But you know what? The Toastmaster had this meeting as our favorite, a backwards meeting. And when I was practicing, I've done a version of the speech several times before. I wanted to stand up and I had it marked on the ground where I should stand and you could see me, and my camera was adjusted and I knew my cord for my microphone was long enough. So I was ready, except I looked too chubby. So I decided I was going to sit down. So when I wrote the introduction and what I wanted the evaluator to specifically look for, one of the things I included was feedback from the last time I presented the speech, and I had mentioned standing up. Remember, it's a backward meeting, so before I gave my speech, people threw in like 4 different things that I was supposed to do, and my evaluator talked about how nice it was for me to stand up. When it came time for me to give my speech, I looked good from the top up, and my bottom down, I had yoga pants on, but at least I had pants on, but I looked horrible, and I spent all my efforts remembering the 4 things that they gave me on the front end that I forgot my speech. So it was an awful speech for me when I was trying to make a good first impression with the new club. But what I remembered most of all from that was it's just a speech, take the feedback that you get and just move on. I've learned to shorten my speeches to topics and maybe go a little bit deeper because that is also feedback that I've received, is you have too much information and it's more interesting to maybe pick smaller parts and go a little deeper. So learn something from every time I open my mouth in front of a group. And like we say in Toastmasters, feedback is a gift. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, I'm feeling better because I had to do some type of icebreaker as an area. I had to give a little bit of intro speech at a club, and 7 years, however many icebreakers I've done, it was not very good. It was, and I'm sure people are saying, and she's an area director, but you know what, the world's still turning and the birds are still singing. And the only person I know for sure that I don't think we've heard from tonight is Robin. Miss Robin, why don't you tell us about a speech that you gave that it's so memorable for you? It just stays with you year after year after year.
Thank you, Madam Presenter. I don't know what it is here. You're not table topics master or anything like that. But in any event, my last speech that I gave is probably the one I was most proud of and most embarrassed by. I had stuck in my mind that I really needed to talk about my reactions to the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol, because I had grown up in Washington, I had worked for the government, and it just really hit me. And I went back and said, do I want to talk about this? Do I not? Do I want to? Do I not? Because I was very concerned about the audience. How are people going to react to me? And I won't tell you which side I came down on, even though I do feel strongly about it. But in any event, the embarrassing part of it was I wanted to start the speech off with a bang. So I started off with saying, I, Robin Seaton, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution, and then went on from there. And I had practiced that because that oath is so strangely worded in some cases. I had practiced it probably 30 or 40 times. When I got up to give that speech, I forgot to say support. So I left out a word, a pretty important word. And at that point, I just became the deer in the headlights for several seconds. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I recover from this? It's terrible and everybody's going to know. And finally, I just said, forget it, just keep going, don't stop. And that all seemed to work out. The second point that I got from doing that speech was I really wanted to say a lot about how I really felt about what happened that day. And I ran into that 5 to 7 minute time frame limit that you had. So I had, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 minutes worth of stuff to talk about. And I kept saying as I practiced, no, I've got to take that out. No, I've got to take that out. I don't have this much time for it. And I'm afraid that what happened was that it became so short and I'd had to cut out so much that I actually lost some of the key ideas that I had in it. So that was not great. But again, I think it was still a very powerful speech. And in fact, it was my second icebreaker that I had done for a path. So that is my story. I do solemnly swear it is true.
Well, that's great. You know, and as Trish put up a thing here on the chat in case you haven't seen it, and I didn't read all of it because I don't have bright glasses on, but no matter what, there's no failure in Toastmasters. It's a learning experience throughout our years. Many of us, as Tracy will see, many of us have been in here a lot of years, and we still have oopses. We still have boo-boos. Those are technical terms, by the way, you'll learn later. And we learn from them, we do them, and don't forget them, but don't dwell on them. It happens. Let's just move on. And yeah, so it happens, move on. And next time, who knows, you might be better. You might, you know, you probably will be better because you've expanded your horizons. Let's say you know what you don't want to do next time. I've done all these mistakes that you've heard tonight. I've done them all. You know, I haven't done Robin's mistake because I haven't gotten that. I know the Constitution, you're supposed to preserve and defend or something like that. Well, okay, I probably would have done that too. Okay, so I would have messed everything up. So yeah, you guys are going to hear that bear speech that I was supposed to give in the speech contest where I came in 3rd out of 4 people. It was a fantastic speech. You gotta admit, that's tough. Yeah, it didn't go off too well. Okay, it is 7:23. We are scheduled to end at 7:30. Now, those of you who may be new to Toastmasters, I believe Tracy, you're still giving your icebreaker. The rest of you, I think the rest of us have been around for a little while. But those of you who are new are welcome. Any of you come join us at Showtime. We have a very unusual type of situation, which most clubs, I think we're the only club in this district, at least. We have a double evaluation, the speech specifics that are outlined in the pathway. And we also give like an extra oomph type of evaluation. And please visit us anytime. You're always welcome. We'd love to have you. Our next meeting is next Monday night. Yeah, next Monday night. So please come join us. And at that point,
sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
My Siri came on. I'm sorry about that. I think my Siri doesn't like me. So at that point, let us, I'm so sorry.
Hey, Kathy, why don't you go ahead and let me take over? Because I can tell your throat's just killing you, hun. So
Please go ahead, ma'am. Thank you very much. This is also, we support each other.
as
this way.
immediate past president of Showtime, I am not bumping my current president out of the way, but it was obviously she was getting into some distress. So yes, Showtime meets next Monday. We meet at 6:30. You can go to our free Toast Host page, and there is a link there that will take you to our meetings. You do need to register so that you can get in and get that invitation. We would love to have anybody who has not visited us come and visit us. And I am going to just give a couple of minutes. We have a practice in Showtime that every 5th Monday, which doesn't stress anybody because it's only 4 times a year, we have a workshop where we take a topic that has to do with public speaking and we give a really expanded, in-depth discussion of it. And this Monday, Trish Blackwelder is going to be giving our, not this Monday, sorry, this 5th Monday, which is the 29th. She is going to be our presenter for our 5th Monday. We would love to have you all come visit. I'm going to give Trish about 1.5 minutes to just give you a quick idea of what you will see when you come visit us. Trish.
Okay, quickest response ever. If you've ever thought about what it would be like to speak from the big stage and compete to win a speech contest, you want to mark your calendars right now for Monday, August 30th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. and come watch as I pull the curtain and take everyone behind what it really means to be a speech contestant. It's not just about writing a speech, it's about mastering that environment as well. So lots of interesting perspectives on speech competition that you will get to hear about when you attend Monday, August 30th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Thank you, Marilyn.
And thank you. That was quick and to the point. I love it. Exactly the way Trish joined Toastmasters was so she could get stuff like that really fast. Okay. All right, so we've got 3 more minutes. Do any of the Toastmaster officers have, sorry, Showtime officers have anything that they would like to very quickly share with our guests tonight?
Okay, before Trisha's presentation on the 30th, we do have another power hour on the 20th of August. Unfortunately, I don't know the subject yet.
No.
Sorry?
Oh,
No, we don't. We have,
No, we have a meeting on the 23rd.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we only have 1 power hour a month.
What's that? It's the 20th of September.
September, right.
Possibly.
Okay, sorry, 20th of September. I would have been here on the 20th of August, sitting here saying, where is everybody?
Nope.
So,
Okay. Well, and again, I'll invite you all to go to the Showtime free Toast Host page. We have an events page. If you look in the left-hand side where all the links are, you can go there. You can see all of our power hours. You can see our workshops for 5th Mondays, and you can see our meetings. So gosh, there's so much at free Toast Host. Go ahead there. And if you have any questions, obviously, please feel free to reach out to Kathy or Bobby or Trish or our VPE Connie, and we will be, oh, and Warren, of course,
Warren.
Cynthia, any of our Showtime members, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Robin, sorry, I forgot you. Okay, and I don't think anybody is going to be upset if we kick this thing through like 30 seconds early. So thank you all so very much for coming. We do appreciate it. And I am going to say goodnight for Showtime and for Kathy.